Hi there. Welcome to Buckeye Bigfoot. Tonight's journey down into Sasquatch Valley is actually going to take us up, right up onto a water tower where something was curious enough to climb the ladder up. Are you ready? I am, and so are the horses. So grab your snackage, get a drink, and get your booty on up in the saddle. It's past time we headed down the trail into Sasquatch Valley. Let's go. You can use my first name. I'm Caleb. I paint tanks and towers for a living. City water, co-ops, those big blue bowls with the town name on them. We chase rust for counties that can't keep up with salt and weather, and we make old steel look young enough to pass inspection. It's good, honest work, but it can be hard, and it will teach you to respect three things: gravity, wind, and whatever decides to share a catwalk with you after quitting time. This was late last fall, late September, when the nights first get that little bite to them. We were up on a classic single-pedestal spheroid water tower. Looks like one of those big blue lollipops stuck in the clay at the edge of the city. This is out behind a softball complex and a VFW, out on a patch that sits right on the line between what belongs to the town and what belongs to the state park next door. The water authority wanted that pedestal and the underside touched up and the catwalk railings brought back to safety yellow. We'd spent a week washing and blasting, chasing pits, priming with zinc, top coating with a two-part that will stick to a greased eel if you mix it just right. I'd been on that catwalk enough times to know where every bolt head could snag your pant leg. There were 4 of us on the job. Me, my cousin Wade, and 2 other hands, Zeke and a young guy called Peanut, who carried full buckets as easily as if they were empty. They were 12-hour days if the wind would let us, 10 if it didn't. On the day that I'm talking about, we had wrapped up early because a line of heavy storms was coming in from the west. Wade took Peanut to go get thinner and rollers, planning to beat the rain in the morning. Zeke stayed down on the ground to coil cords and to lock the gang box. I stayed up top to tape off a couple of nozzle plates I wanted to dry by sunup. I was alone out there on the catwalk, harness clipped into the cable, respirator hanging off me like a bib, knife coiled to the rail for cutting tape clean. If you've never been that high when the day is winding down, you really should try it, at least once. The town suddenly seems very small. Pickup trucks move around down there like child's toys. The softball diamonds are now just chalk rings in the distance, turning invisible, and then suddenly their lights come on, and that's all you can see. And when the wind dies down, you hear little things up there that you would never hear out on the street. The flag halyards clicking, bats from the cages 2 fields over, and someone's mom out there calling them in from half a mile away. Now, the kids probably couldn't hear her, but we could for some reason. Sound is strange up there. Another thing is, steel kind of has its own voice. It pings and sighs as it cools down from a hot day's heat. You get used to the sounds. It's like listening to your house settle at night. So when something taps the ladder, even at the bottom, and you're at the top, you hear it. You notice. I was up there and I heard 3 knocks on the steel. Knock, knock, knock. It was a hollow sound, and it came right up the ladder cage, traveling quick. I looked up and over to the ladder hatch. No one should be coming up, and I had never heard any of them bang on the ladder to say they were coming up. I thumbed my radio. "Zeke, is that you coming up?" His voice crackled when he replied, "Negative. I'm at the truck, sir. Why, you need a hand?" "No, I gotta, well, something just banged on the ladder. Well, wind can do that sometimes, he said, sounding like he didn't even believe it himself. Then he said, you good up there? Yeah, I said, lying. I twisted and peered over the catwalk rail toward the vertical cage. The ladder ran up the pedestals outside. It was old code, with a cage that's more good for pretending at being able to catch someone, but not really good for catching. And then it ended through a circular hatch onto the catwalk. That hatch lid was propped open with a wedge, the way we always do it when folks are coming and going, so you don't have to wrestle it with both hands when you're loaded down. From where I stood, I couldn't see more than 50 feet straight down. The curve of the tank hides things, and that cage makes a grid that your eyes just can't see past. Here came the banging or the knocks again. Knock, knock, knock. It was slower this time, yet it sounded closer. Every third knock, there was the tiniest shiver through the steel into the meat of my boot soles. "Wade?" I said out loud as a last hope. There was no answer. I looked across the parking lot, and I saw that Wade's F-150 was already gone, presumably with Peanut in it. Then a smell rose up the ladder. Not sewer smell exactly, not dead animal. Damp pennies and moss kind of smell. Hot and wet, like someone had bathed a really stinky dog in a copper tub, then left the dirty water out in the hot sun all day. This smell came in humid waves. Now, I've been pranked, I've thought. A lot of the guys I knew could be stupid pranksters, though I hadn't had anything on this scale from any of the guys before. Once they taped my hands to a rail. One time they swapped my coffee out with muddy water. I tied a zip tie once through Peanut's harness D-ring so he couldn't unhook himself. That's the kind of stuff we do to each other. But there wasn't a man on that crew, or, come to think of it, any crew I've ever worked, that could throw smell like that without a bucket. And I don't think any of them could or would have dealt with that smell for that long. I was waiting and counting those knocking bangs, and then they stopped. I waited several more seconds. I set my tape roller down. You make sure you never drop anything off a tank. It stops being your problem and will suddenly become part of somebody's skull if you do. Well, anyway, I set that down and I walked the catwalk toward the hatch. My lanyard slid along the lifeline with a lazy little chick, chick, chick. "Anybody down there coming up?" I called out, because I was going to say it out loud before I looked down. That way, if it was one of the guys, they wouldn't say I was scared or being cowardly. But no voice answered. I leaned over the hatch, one boot against the hinge, one arm on the rail, body weight in the harness. It wasn't dark yet, just getting dark and dusky, more dark blue-gray hazy, the color of old blue jeans. But I saw something dark down below, a definitive shape yet shapeless. It was a dark blob at first, but it was there. I stared long and hard, and then I saw something that I recognized and was unmistakable. A hand coming up and curling around a rung. That hand was no glove, though I told myself it was for just 1 or 2 heartbeats. It was dark and wide across the palm with a pad that seemed to swallow half the width of the rung. The fingers curled around the rung slowly, like they really didn't need the structure of the rung to climb, so much as they just wanted to test it out. I saw hair on it. It seemed short along the back of the hand, yet longer at the wrist. I saw it stir with the faint updraft coming off the shell of the tank. I have trained myself over the years not to jump, to not be startled. No matter what, you cannot be jumpy on a catwalk up there. Harnesses can fail, and I've seen enough bad things happen through the years that I'm always conscious of it. But being startled and jumping on a catwalk, that's how you go over. That's how you can end. But seeing that hand on the rung, I came as close to jumping back on a catwalk as I ever have since my very first week on the job, right after high school graduation. But I didn't jump. My stomach, however, moved around inside into places that it really didn't belong. Whoever owned that hand did not care if I saw it. "Jumpin' Jehoshaphat," I yelled. I was seeing, and I was still not believing. I yelled, and then instantly, as I looked down, I saw the impression of a dark face as it leaned its whole body back against the cage away from the ladder to look up at me. It couldn't bend its neck. I brought the hatch lid down with one hand. Not with a slam, but I did close it down firmly. I set the wedge aside and twisted the dog latch tight. Then I backed away from the hatch. I looked over the catwalk railing, but the curve and the darkness didn't allow me to see much of anything. Suddenly my radio popped and crackled. "You still up there, Caleb?" "Yeah," I said. And then I said, "Hey, Zeke, check the lock on the anti-climb at the base, would you?" "Oh, it's locked," he said. "Been locked all day. I checked it when you said you heard some banging on that ladder." I thought for a second, and then I asked him, "What about somebody inside? Could they be inside?" I knew that some older towers have interior ladders up the pedestal. "Nuh-uh," he said. "Door's chained. I got the key on me. Ain't nobody inside that tank. Nothing but water." I looked west, and the sky out there flickered rapidly with heat lightning. Voices from the ball field suddenly drifted up to my hearing. "Do me a favor," I said. "Walk to the base. Don't go under the cage. Just go have a look." "You got it, boss." I heard his boots on the gravel while I stood with my palm flat on the hatch lid like a man feeling the hood of a truck to see if it's hot. The steel under my hand felt occupied. I know that sounds crazy, but that's how it felt. After a few more seconds, Zeke came on the radio. "I'm at the pedestal." He paused, then suddenly his tone changed. Hey, I can smell something. You cooking something up there?" "No," I said. "What's the anti-climb look like?" "Chains on. Locks on," he said. Then metal on metal tapped and banged, then stopped. "Hold up," he said. What, I asked. Something. Is there someone else up there with you? Is there someone else on the ladder?" Now, by this time, dusk had turned to almost complete darkness, with only vague shapes, shadows, and movements visible. "I don't know," I said honestly. Neither of us had lighting that would cover 100 feet or more of darkness. We were quiet together a second. Then he said, "You want me to come up there, meet you halfway?" I swear I heard a big swallow after he said that. A big gulp, kind of like Shaggy on Scooby-Doo. "No," I said, and then took a breath. "No, you stay put. I'm coming down. Just stay clear of the landing, just in case." I paused, not sure what to say here, and then I said, "Just in case I force someone back down." Up top, I clipped into the lifeline, and I walked the catwalk slow. I set my toes, looked out over the darkened parking lot. The wind came in a little from the west, a little more strongly now, fluttering the caution tape that we'd tied to the rail where we didn't want folks stepping down below. The tape snapped and crinkled as it fluttered, and on the wind was the unmistakable smell of wet dirt and rain. Down the ladder, something in the darkness moved. I felt the vibration in the steel where my hand held the railing. This wasn't knocking or banging exactly. It was bumping, and there's a crucial difference there. "All right," I said, preparing to go down the ladder. I suddenly knew and understood how my dad must have felt in Vietnam. My dad was a small guy, barely 5'4", so they used him as a tunnel rat. I remember once overhearing him talking with my uncles, and he said that he once used to stand near the cave entrances, and he would be scared out of his wits before going in. But he would say some prayers, and he would talk to himself, and then he got on with it, because it was all right. Yeah, I said, I'll just say a prayer and talk to myself a bit, and it will be all right. I pulled my knife from the tape on the railing, and I slid it into my pocket. I took the wedge off the hatch dog where I'd set it and tucked it under the rail, getting ready. There were a few more bumps that came up the steel. Then a louder bump, and I heard a distinctive muffled sound of light pain. If I was a guessing man, I would guess whoever or whatever it was down there cracked their shin bones on a rung on the ladder. I tried to mark how far the sound was down the ladder in my head. 20 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet? But I knew it didn't matter. The impression I saw of that face in the darkness, if it was what I thought it was, no hatch dog would keep it from getting up here. I waited several more minutes, listening to the bangs as they got fainter and fainter. I radioed down to Zeke. You see anything? No, but I'm by my truck. You told me to stay clear. I thought that if he was at his truck, he probably wouldn't be able to see anything. I thought about telling him to drive his truck over, put his brights on the bottom of the ladder until I got down, but I didn't. I took another breath and then said, I'm coming down. Now listen, I'm going to stay clipped in till my feet hit the gravel. Get in your truck, get it running, and if I say go, you get on out of here. And if I say pick me up, you drive right up here and you pick me up as close to the ladder as you can. You got me? I got you, he said, just a little too fast. I said, say it again like you're not scared and that you understand me. I got you, he said, and it came out sounding like a man. I popped the hatch and lifted it slowly. The smell came up like sewage gas from old pipes. The ladder rungs were black in the light, and my headlamp put only a little cone of nothing out, and that didn't help much. I put my boot on the first rung down and listened for anything that wasn't me. Coming down, I said softly. Not into the radio, not for Zeke, not so much as for whoever might have ears down there. Through the years, I've descended ladders with lightning threatening to fry me like strips of bacon in a cast-iron skillet, with tornadoes dropping down from the clouds close enough I could almost touch them. I've climbed with both hands so numb from cold and ice that I have to look at them to make sure they're really gripping the ladder rungs. But I have never, and I mean never, grabbed that ladder so tight and put my feet on rungs oh so carefully as I did then. My lanyard traveler ran on the lifeline cable with a chick, 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 the sound of assurance clicking itself into my blood. 15 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 50 feet. The smell grew stronger and then thinned. Twice a little sound bumping steel ticked in the cage somewhere below me, and my lungs felt like they were going to burst from holding my breath. Halfway down the ladder, the cage blocks your view of the sky. You're inside the steel, and the world turns into a tunnel with just a square of evening at the top and the promise of ground under your boots if you keep your head. I kept my head. I counted. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, like some kid counting himself to sleep. At 70 feet, I stopped and listened. Something, and there was no getting around it, something shifted its weight below. I felt it on the steel. Then I heard a sound that I had heard thousands of times in my career, the unmistakable whoomp, the sound of feet hitting the gravel on the pad below. I stopped, and I hung on to the ladder for several seconds, listening. I then heard the gravel crunch as footsteps led away. I waited 30 seconds more, then quickly moved further down the ladder. 12 feet from the concrete pad, the cage opens lower, so a man can step off without cracking his shins on a ring. Once there, I told Zeke to come pick me up. Then I went down a few more rungs, then jumped down to the gravel from a few rungs up. That's when I saw the truck's headlights. That strange smell still lingered at the bottom of the pad. I got into Zeke's truck, and we took off down to the main parking lot. I was almost shaking with relief. Well, I wasn't shaking exactly, but I felt like I was. I kept looking through the back window and my side mirror, but all I saw was the ground lit up from the glow from the truck's taillights. Zeke pulled up right next to my truck. I opened his truck door, getting ready to get out. But before I got out, he said, "Hey, did you see it? Please tell me you saw it." I don't think he was scared exactly. Maybe more surprised. His eyes were big and intense looking under the truck's dome light as he looked at me questioningly. "No," I said. "Well, I don't think I did. Well, not so clear anyway. I mean, I saw something." And I trailed off here. It was just hard to know what to say. I saw something, that was true. But I didn't have a clear thought on what it was. Not right then. I would later. Just not right then. It was all so fast and so confusing. "Tell me, though, what did you see that wasn't clear? Tell me the not clear part." Zeke was serious. He wanted me to say it. "I saw something that was hairy and big, but it was getting dark so fast." Well, that was enough for Zeke. He nodded and he said, Yeah, it was. And it was tall and heavy and fast. It was gone out into the woods before I even knew what I was looking at." Zeke stopped there and looked at me helplessly. I decided, let's change course. "You'll be here tomorrow?" I asked, because I wasn't sure he would be. He nodded. "Yeah, I'll be here, he said. Then he said, "Hey, what's your call on how to handle this?" I thought for a second, then said, "My call is we put the lock through the hatch dog when we leave from now on. My call is we're not shutting this job down over something that didn't even lay a hand on us. And my further call is we don't work past dusk again." Zeke looked at me thoughtfully and nodded in agreement. We both breathed like we knew we were finally allowed to. I got into my truck. We nodded at each other, and we pulled away. In my rearview mirror, the west storm was coming in hot. Heat lightning was backlighting the tower as I drove out. And for just a split second, my eyes played tricks on me, and I had to do a double take because I thought I saw the outline of a large human form with lightning behind it, standing off just to the side of the tank area. But then it was gone. I looked again, and I put my eyes forward just as the rain cut loose and thunder rolled. I did not dream that night. I lay there instead and counted rungs on a ladder. The next morning, dew sat heavy on everything. We rolled in at sunup with coffee and poor opinions, and while the others fired up the compressor, I walked to the pedestal by myself. The smell was gone, but with all the rain we had overnight, I expected that. If there were any other traces, the rain took care of those too. We finished that tower. I won't tell you where it is because, well, I don't want some stupid men with no harnesses throwing themselves up at it in the middle of the night trying to find something. We set 2 more coats on it, lettered the town name back on it in a better font than they had before, and then we put a fresh gloss on the rails so they shouted safety even on a dark, cloudy day. We left the place neater than we found it, trash bagged, all the plastic out, grass not cut up with truck ruts, because, that's kind of a respect that you pay, and that's how you buy your repeat business. When folks ask me if I saw a Bigfoot, I say, well, I saw a hand. I smelled something that didn't belong to a dog or a man or a dead skunk in a ditch. And I saw a dark shape on a ladder and the impression of a large face looking up at me. They press me for more info. They always press me for more. I tell them, listen, I don't climb at dusk anymore if someone isn't at the bottom guarding my ladder. And that's all I can say. Every time now that we pull into a town with a blue bowl on stilts, I look at the ladder cage without meaning to. I scan the nearby area to see how close it is to woods. If it's close, even during the day, I always put someone on ladder watch. Let's just call it a safety measure, that's all. Not every encounter is up close and personal. Some are vague, shadowy, but nonetheless, it can change the perception for someone forever. Caleb knows what he saw. So does Zeke. But they don't have to say it, do they? They just believe each other because they both know. They both saw, and that's enough. I do hope you enjoyed tonight's ride down into Sasquatch Valley. We'll be meeting up again soon. Until then, keep your coffee hot, your snackage plentiful, and you keep your eyes and your ears open to all the things around you. And always, always remember, absence of proof is not proof of absence. Thanks for listening.